In this video, we're going to talk about customer discovery tests. So we're going to answer who wants to actually use your product or feature. And the core of a customer discovery test starts with defining potential personas or archetypes, potential customers. And there's a 2-minute video that was done by Steve Blank. It's brilliant on really how to do create a real good persona. It's really important you do it the right way. Most people think it's just a series of demographics, but it's really much more than that. And Steve does an excellent job on that. So we're going to show that video. It's only a 2-minute video. We're going to show that in a couple of seconds. But the first step is really defining your personas, and then you want to run the same demand validation test against each archetype. So the same cost question that you define as the right appropriate cost question, you want to run that demand validation test with that cost question against each different archetype and each different customer segment. And you want to measure. You want to do about 20 per archetype, just like a regular demand validation test. And then you want to measure completion rates, engagement stats, and the exits, etc. How much time do they really spend on that prototype? Are they really digging in deep? Are they engaged, or are they just kind of clicking around and then answering a couple questions for you? And then, of course, the passing of the cost question. So really simple, really straightforward. You create your archetypes. You run the same demand validation test against each archetype, keeping the responses separate. And you want to measure completion rates and passing the cost question, and then compare the different segments. I promise you, if you do this, there will be certain customer segments that jump out, that are much more engaged and much more willing to engage with your product, and there will be other segments that don't. And so now we're going to turn it to the video that Steve Blank did on how to create a customer persona.
And the goal of all this is to actually define the customer persona or archetype, which is just a fancy way for saying, I want you to know everything about those customers. So what could be everything? So at the end of the day, not only do you know about the pains and gains of these customers, but you specifically know who they are. If they're in a company, their position and title, their age, their sex, their role, and consumers could be parent, it could be child. For a consumer, it could be housemate, etc. How do they buy? Where do they buy? How much money do they have discretionary to spend? And again, it's true in companies, and it's true for consumers. In companies, do you know how much each individual department can sign up for? That is, if you've priced your product $1 too high, sometimes it requires the next level of management to sign off. Same at home. If you're trying to sell to kids, do you know what their allowances are and where they get their money and how often they get it? And if you're selling to consumers who are parents, what's their weekly spend on discretionary items? You need to understand what matters to them, what motivates them, who influences them. And this one isn't trivial. The influences them, you're going to go back to this when you do customer relationships later. And it'd be great if you actually knew how to reach these people and what buttons to push when you do. And so if you start asking these questions when you're starting to talk to them, trying to define them, it makes spending for marketing and demand creation, that is for customer acquisition and activation, incredibly easy because you already asked them up front, how would I get you to buy this? So marketing doesn't become some mysterious process later on. Customers already told you, oh, this is how I buy, and this is how much I spend, and here's who I listen to when I want to make a purchase. As I said earlier, to me the goal is actually for you to know enough to confidently go up to a whiteboard and draw the day in the life of a customer.